So I generally think of myself as a white person, and my background is mixed in the sense that part of it's Catholic, Mediterranean, Central European. The other part of it is Protestant, Scandinavian, Anglo. So all of that mixed together, you can't really latch on to any specific thing. Like maybe if your ancestors were recent arrivals from Croatia, you can kind of think of yourself as a Croat or a Balkan or a Yugo or a Slav or whatever it happens to be. But if you're like me, and a lot of Americans are, you have roots that go all over the European continent. Now, in addition to that, I did the genetic test through one of the outlets, and it came back with a non trivial amount of Native American genetic markers. And I wasn't really surprised by that because of stories I've heard in my family. And a lot of people in America, you talk to them, they say, oh, yeah, my great great grandmother, whatever, was, Cherokee, whatever. Anyhow, it's usually bullshit. And black people are really bad about that. A lot of them think that they have Native American ancestry, and they don't. But knowing that I do, I'm kind of upset with the fallout from Columbus Day and how all of my pro-white right-wing people on Twitter are bashing Native Americans and saying that they were barbarous savages and that it was a good thing that white people came to North America and killed them off and replaced them. So it's just it's just like kind of a strange and weird deal, especially for people like me who that's actually my ancestors too. And you don't get to pick and choose, like which ancestors you want. They're all in there. You have to claim all of them basically because they're the people that constitute you and they're the people that create you. They did create you, they created who you are. So, what specifically I'd like to complain about is that people like Jared Taylor, Carolyn Emmerich, I think even Ramsey Paul, various people have used the argument that Native Americans were bloodthirsty savages and white people came in and civilized them. Now, it's true, um, Europeans were further along in the cultural developmental cycle, so white people were more civilized when they showed up in North America. But if you go back in time and you look at specific European groups, like for example, the Scandinavians used to do the blood eagle. I mean, they would butcher people and torture them slowly in really grotesque ways. The Romans, I think, invented crucifixion. That's a ghastly torture thing. As far as a lot of the right wing people make fun of the Aztecs and the Mayans for cutting out people's hearts and sacrificing large numbers of people. But the Scythians would make goblets out of human skulls, and they would either plate them with silver or gold, and they would use them as drinking cups. Um, Now, I think all of that stuff is actually pretty cool, and I don't have a problem with it, and I'm not judging it. It's just shit that people do, and it's in the European heritage. But what I don't think you should do is turn around and point out the other groups and say, Native Americans are bloodthirsty savages because they used to chop people up into pieces or whatever. Because, come on, guys, get real. Europeans did that stuff as well. Um, so, if it's true that Native Americans were more bloodthirsty when those two groups met, it's because, like I said, the Europeans were way further along. And if the Native Americans had ever civilized to the degree that Europeans did, then they would probably have fairly the same behavior. Um, Now, as far as like the rights to conquer North America, I mean, whoever wins, wins, right? If your people move in and take over an area, I mean, like, might really does make right sometimes. And I think that conquest of territory is one of those things. But you can't really play it um, like you have to have a consistent standard. You can't say today human rights are what we strive for, and you don't have a right to do this, that, or the other to me, and then turn around the next day and say, well, they came in and killed everybody, so of course they own it now. So, just like you can't really go back and forth too easily. So the best thing to do would be to just like stay away from the issue of whether white people had the right to take land away from Native Americans by war. Just like stay away from it. You don't have to talk about it. You don't have to take a position on this issue and then expose yourself to attack. So this is going to lead me into my last observation on this topic. Why are you even talking about this shit? You're talking about it because of the left, just like always. So there's a thing called Columbus Day, and it's that a bunch of Italians want to celebrate a famous Italian. Okay, fine. Who gives a shit? Well, the people who gave a shit were the left, who showed up and started talking about this stuff on behalf of Native Americans. I don't even really think the Native Americans were the people who were originally protesting Columbus, mainly because they never saw him, right? That guy was down in Hispaniola. He wasn't in Boston, for Christ's sake, right? Okay, so it's like the left is doing this famous trick that they always do, where they show up, they pick a minority group, in this case, Native Americans, who've got a lot of problems like being alcoholics, criminals, welfare dependents, diabetes. They've got tons of problems, right? And then the left comes in and they say, hey, Native Americans, you guys are in this shitty situation because of whites and because of Columbus. And then a bunch of other people get together and start protesting this stuff. And then the right-wing people are reacting against it and saying, well, hell yeah, damn right, it's a good thing we killed all those damn Indians. Columbus, hell yeah. The really weird thing is that a lot of the people who are, really gung-ho about this are like Anglo-Germans, Scandinavians, Irish, anyhow. It's really strange. It just shows like how Columbus, how the left is just like totally misdirected us. They're really good about this. They always distract us from what we should be doing and get us to fight amongst each other. The people, as far as I'm concerned, blacks and whites and Native Americans and Hispanics, we should probably all be united against the real enemies, which are the globalists and the people who are causing us to fight against each other. It doesn't mean that the whites need to go out and always marry a non-white person and breed them out of existence. Everybody can still have their separate cultural identities and groups, and they can have ethnic self-determination and all that kind of stuff. But it doesn't really help for white people to be bashing Native Americans when Native Americans are such a small population that they're basically a non-issue. Okay? We are having the conversation that the left wants us to have, which is, are whites today responsible for Native Americans getting pushed off of their lands? Anyhow, that's my take on it. And this is Columbus Day 2017. Thank you for your time.